The economics of feeding Reassure precision-release choline. Reassure is fed during the transition period, and because it's fed for such a short period of time, it costs just $15 per cow, and yet the benefits will continue to generate income throughout the year. Cows fed Reassure produce 5 pounds more colostrum, which pays for your Reassure investment on the very first day of lactation. Cows fed Reassure also produce 5 pounds more milk per day, every day. That means after the first day, every day is payday. Invest in Reassure during the transition period and recoup your investment on the very first day of lactation. After that, you got it. Payday.
For over 30 years, Progressive Dairy has been bringing dairy producers forward-thinking articles about new facilities, new products, and new methods.
What began as an 8-page flyer in 1987, serving the dairy producers of Idaho, Progressive Dairy magazine has grown into a national and international publication serving the dairy industry across North America.
From the beginning, Progressive Dairy has been provided as a free publication to dairy producers and continues that way today.
Progressive Dairy has always been provided free with the support of advertisers who promote their products and services on the pages of our magazine. Our advertisers trust that we are delivering Progressive Dairy to the right audience. You can help us maintain that trust with our advertisers.
We invite you, our reader, to make sure you request and renew your free subscription to Progressive Dairy once every 2 years. To help us keep your information up to date and to ensure that you will continue to receive Progressive Dairy for many years to come.
How will you know if you need to renew your subscription? It's actually really simple. Here, let me show you. For print magazines, on the front cover of each issue, right above your mailing address, you will find your customer ID number. When we need to hear from you, the message, "Time to renew," will be printed after that number. If you don't update your subscription at that time, the text will then change to read, "This could be your last issue, and you could be removed from the mail list if you don't take time to renew." So be sure you don't miss an issue by watching for those messages on your mailing label on the front cover and reach out to us to renew.
Is there anyone else working on your farm or ranch that should have a free subscription? Let us know their information or pass this along, and we'll get them signed up for free as well.
Renew your subscription online at progressivedairy.com or call us at 208-324-7513 to speak with one of our team members. Also, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and our podcast for the latest information about the dairy industry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural Real Producer Exchange webinar. I'm Scott Sorrell, Director of Marketing for Balchem Animal Nutrition and Health, and I'm thrilled to launch this exciting new webinar series. We'll connect with dairy producers worldwide, diving into their unique challenges, opportunities, and lessons learned. Now let's get started. First, allow me to introduce today's moderator, Mr. Walt Cooley, a seasoned editor from Progressive Dairy magazine with deep expertise in the dairy industry. Welcome, Walt. Before we get started, please share with us an overview of your background, and then please introduce our featured guest.
Thanks, Scott. I'm glad to be here today. So my journey in agriculture started at a young age when I started working on my grandfather's dairy in Utah. Went on to graduate with a degree in journalism, and I served as an editor-in-chief of Progressive Dairy for 16 years. Since then, I've moved on to another role inside of our company. I'm now the Vice President of Publishing at Progressive Publishing for all of our agriculture-related brands, and we're based in Jerome, Idaho. In addition, I'm the founder and editor of the cowtechreport.com, which is a global newsletter covering all things related to emerging technologies for cows. I like to say I'm a learner and a futurist that's passionate about technology and how it gets applied for farms and livestock. So this is a great opportunity to bring on a guest today that is going to talk about some of those kind of things, new technologies, some other interesting ideas that will be talked about. And I want to highlight, first of all, that this session is really about the real part. So we're going to talk about new things. Producers that will be on will be talking about some of those new things that they're doing, and also some of the real things that they have experienced, maybe some things that didn't work out, maybe as they planned, or they're still working through. And I think that's what will make today's session unique amongst the various virtual options that you can have for a webinar today. So I'm grateful to be able to have Clare on with me today. So Clare Alderink, he's the manager of Brian Ryzebol Dairy in Bailey, Michigan. And he's going to give out some more details about his dairy, but let me just give a little bit of a background about him. He's a graduate of Michigan State University, and he earned his degree in dairy management from their dairy management program. And prior to joining Ryzebol, Clare grew up working with his dad on their dairy in Michigan, as well as working as a sales representative for 6 years in genetics, breeding, and udder care. He has also worked as a herdsman at 2 other dairies in central Michigan. And when he is not at the farm, Clare enjoys spending time on Lake Michigan with his family, which includes Becky, his wife, and 2 sons, Max and Leo. So Clare, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Walt. Thanks for having me. Happy to.
Let's first go ahead and start. Tell us a little bit more about your farm, where you're located at, and up your slides here. You brought some beautiful pictures about the farm to share with us.
Yeah. So I'm Clare. I've been the manager here now. I'm working on 8 years. I grew up working on a dairy with my dad. It wasn't our dairy. My dad still actually works there. My brother works there now too. In central Michigan, I always loved the cows. I liked working alongside my dad and learned a lot from him and what, he was managing the dairy. And I decided at a pretty young age that this is what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be. So I went to Michigan State, did the 2-year dairy tech program, learned a lot there, got a lot of exposure to people that I work with today and met experts and different people and got off the farm, which is a really healthy exercise. And then I went and I worked as a route breeder for a few years. Walt already covered all this stuff, but I'll just kind of explain it. From there, I worked on a dairy, and then I went back and I worked for ABS, managing route breeders and sales people here in Michigan for 4 years. And then I was invited to come to manage Ryzebol Dairy in 2017. Came up here, moved my family. It was only about 60 miles, but it was a good move. Ryan and Marika and Matcha hired me to be the operations manager, the general manager. So I run basically everything on the dairy as far as it comes with the people. And Ryan does all the farming, and Marika does all of our office work and pays all the bills. And the 3 of us work together on a daily basis. They have their family here. They have 5 boys. I have 2 boys. The age range, I think we're currently 7 to 14. We might have a 6.5-year-old in there somewhere, but family dairy, the family's very involved. We're here on the dairy every day. We're working with the cows. We're working with the people. And I'm very blessed to have been able to come here, and hopefully I can share some of my experiences today, some things we've tried, some things that I've done that haven't been so hot. And see what you guys think. So do you want me to start to go through the slides then, Walt?
Yeah, I first just want to say, we've done some pre-interview, some prep work. Obviously, you're going to see some slides that have been pre-prepared. So this is some work has already been done to do interview and prep work for this message today. But I want to say, and I think you said this, Brian, that you feel like you want to help teach. You're not here to say necessarily, I know everything. We're still trying things, and talk a little bit about your philosophy, how you're just always trying to continuously improve.
Right. Definitely. I don't want to come across like that at all. We don't have anything figured out. We have some things that we work really hard on and we focus on, and some things that we do that we do well, but there's always opportunity for improvement. And exercises like this, talking with other dairymen and hearing what other people are going through and making mistakes so other people don't have to, is kind of what the name of this game is. So I'll start to work through the slides a little bit. So we started, it's Brian Ryzebol Dairy. This dairy was built in 2000 here in Michigan. Brian moved his family here from California, built it pretty much as it sits today. It was built to milk 3,000 cows, and that's what we've maintained for numbers over the years. Brian passed away in 2011, and his oldest boy took over for a while, and then his second son managed the dairy after that. And then I came along in 2017, and I work with his daughter, Marika, and son-in-law, Ryan. And yeah, we're here. We have, we're kind of established at our size. 3,000 is basically the maximum allowable limit on a single site in Michigan anyway. So it's, in terms of growth, we're not in that mode right now. We're very happy with the size that we are, but we also know you cannot sit still in this world. You have to, if you're going to stay at this size, you have to become more efficient and get better. So we're focused on that, and we can really focus on that since expansion is not in our immediate horizon. So I'll explain a little bit about the dairy. This is our mission statement on the bottom of the screen. Our purpose is to glorify God through the care and cultivation of families, animals, land, and all of our resources. That's basically it. That's what we do every day. We're here. We're blessed to be here. We get to work with, I get to work with 39 guys and 3,000 cows. And I feel like I have a lot of responsibility to take care of everybody here and take care of these cows. And we start with this. This is our purpose. This is our mission statement. We talk about this with employees. Everybody has the same mentality. And we find if we do things for this purpose, even if we fail at times, it isn't really failure. It's a lesson learned. So I got a couple pictures of some cows I care about. And then that's basically the team right there of myself, Ryan, Silverio, Arturo, Julio, Nicasio, and Clasario. All of the guys in that picture have been at this dairy more than 15 years. 3 of the guys in that picture have been here since it was built. I'm actually the one that's been there the least amount of time, as if you look at that picture there. And that's the secret sauce here. It's our people. We have an incredible team of guys that, here's a little bit about me. Sorry, I'll go back to my guys. We try to keep the system simple. The managers that were here before me always did that. We kept things simple, made it easy to do, but it's got to be done a certain way, and all the details are very important. And you work on the details with the guys, and they listen to that. They kind of hold that standard. And as we do introduce new people to the team, it's easy to train and easy to get them up to the standard, because these guys that want everything a particular way. And we're just very blessed and thankful to have all them. Here's a few pictures of, on the left, you got my boy Max and his first show heifer, Dipsy. There's my wife, Becky. She loves the calves. She loves the cows. We raise that calf there. We do a few heifers for the fair. We're not doing anything crazy. We're not show cow oriented. We have a large dairy with, commercial cows, if you will, if you want to call them that. But every year we take out 6 or 7 of them, and the boys develop a relationship with the animal, and they learn, the cow, learn the responsibilities it has to take care of them every day. And we find this to be very valuable. And as we grow and develop, we're working on the next generation of dairy farmers. So I got to believe out of 7 of these boys, I'm going to find one, at least one, that's going to be as passionate about doing this for the cows and the people as we are today. So just a few show cow pictures, and then we'll move into the numbers. The dairy was built in 2000. I established that. We're milking 3,000 cows, double 45 parallel. We retain all of our heifers and sell all of our beef calves at day old. All of our calves are raised off-site. I go visit our heifer raisers about twice monthly. Every other week, I try to go down there. I sort heifers. I look at calves. I just go to all the different locations we have them and try to pay as much attention as I can to the heifers with them being off-site. Quality and efficiency have always been staples of this dairy since it was built. And we're currently farming around 4,000 acres ourselves to produce the hay and the corn that it takes to feed these cows. More than the numbers, I established our purpose. It starts by taking care of the cows and taking care of the people, and really caring about the people and showing them that you care about them. And there's so many different ways, and it's hard to explain. But also being passionate about the cows with the people, and they can see how much we all care and how much we really want to do this. We focus on quality every day. Milk quality is one of our pillars. We talk about it all the time. It is our goal to put the cleanest milk in a bottle that exists. We don't always do it, but we're pretty close. So we try to maintain that. We do the best we can. We're always trying to improve. We can always make our somatic cell lower. There's always going to be somebody out there that's got better quality than you have, but that's a good thing. And you got to try to, we all want to get that. So several team members, I said, have been here many, many years. It's a good place to work. So people stay here and continue to work here. And that takes work, though. That doesn't just happen. But we can't do anything without all these people here in these pictures. So that's I want that to be my take-home message. Technology is great and cool, but none of it works if you don't have the right people behind it. Here's just some more pictures of the dairy. We've got our mechanics and our breeding team and our milking crew with their milk quality award and our feed man. And hold on. Yeah, so I can't say enough. I won't say enough today good about this team and how blessed I am to be a part of it. But that's where it all starts. But we're here to talk about technology, things that we're doing. Well, the main thing that we've been working on for probably the last year and a half is the AFI feed efficiency collar tool. So all of our cows wear these collars. We updated the parlor 3 years ago. We went from the leg band to the neck band so we could have rumination. And but there's some other things that could do. So we started doing some testing with AFI and doing some looking at the feed, and they can they can track eating time, and they're basically figuring out how much each cow on an individual basis is eating every day. And they have production data because we have the meters. We don't have the lab, but I do feed them back our test day information so we can energy correct the milk and look at this thing based on how much are these cows eating every day and what is she really making us as far as income over feed. It's harder than you think it is to determine which cows are actually profitable cows. I always thought any cow making 80, 90 pounds of milk is a profitable cow. That's not necessarily true. So now I have this feed efficiency tool. I'm looking at this tool. I'm using this to find my less feed efficient cows, my lower end cows that are maybe close to that milk cut line where I would normally just use a number for milk. Let's say it's 55 pounds today. Everybody below that we're looking at least for culling. But sometimes there's cows that are making quite a bit more milk than that, And so you're not looking at those cows, but those cows are not feed efficient cows, and those will be fat cows. And those cows, it's when you print the list and you go look at those cows, they're pretty obvious that they're not efficient cows, but those cows go unseen otherwise without this tool that I'm using. So what we're doing now is we're finding these cows. We get feed efficiency on the first 60 days in milk, and I can determine whether or not I want replacements out of those cows. And since we're breeding heavily with beef, I already have room in my program to make less replacements. I have a few more than I need. And I can also just need to, modify my strategy and just pick the right cows to get replacements out of. Right now, it's more of a blanket strategy where we're just using first, second service. All cows get sex semen. Those are the heifers. Those are my replacements. Everybody else gets beef. This way, I will be able to determine whether or not I cull every single cow that's not efficient. You can't do that. You can't just go cull all your inefficient cows or you won't have enough cows. But I can determine whether or not I want a replacement out of that animal. And over time, we'll be able to breed the efficiency into the herd by using our most feed efficient cattle to make more feed efficient cattle. So that's a long game. It takes a lot of time, just like anything with genetics. But I find the information to be compelling. I do believe it's accurate, and I think you got to start somewhere. So this is my strategy with the feed efficiency technology, and I'm pretty excited about it. But we're really in the beginning, so I'm not in the mode where I can group cows by efficiency or anything like that yet. I'm just basically using it as a tool to find cull cows sooner and make breeding decisions. So that's where I'm at with the feed efficiency. Another big
let me ask you a
question.
If we go back to the feed efficiency, talk a little bit about, are you seeing anything, early signs of correlations between how you have been having your breeding strategy to seeing the cows that maybe are feed efficient, or was that kind of a surprise to see, oh, we didn't imagine that, these type of cows we were breeding were going to be feed efficient?
We have some cows that, like, we have bought some purebred Holstein cows, and we used to be a crossbred herd. I guess I should have disclosed that. In the 2010 era, we went to pro cross. When I arrived here in 2017, we were in the middle of that. I almost immediately turned back to Holstein, but it took me a little while because I wanted to understand things first before I just started pulling levers. But you get these higher, big Holstein cows, they'll show up as the least feed efficient cows, but they kind of look like it. And we bought a few show animals for the boys to have fall calves, and those girls are on the top of the list every time for least feed efficient cows. And you go look at them and you can see it. They're big and they probably eat a lot. So it kind of tells you there's other ways to find out and know, probably using 3 points of type and show frame cows to make replacements isn't really the right program, but I think the genetics companies have figured all that kind of stuff out for us. We just got to make sure, we're breeding for the right kind of cow, the cow that works for us. What this tells us is what ones do work. Okay, well, who are they? Well, what do we know about them? We know a lot about them because we track all kinds of things about them and we have all their history. So we can use that to try to somewhat predict, okay, how are we going to get a better replacement? Well, who do we want them out of? That's what this is helping me determine.
Thanks. You can go to your next slide now.
Another big thing we did last year, high oleic soybeans. This isn't really new technology. Some people would probably laugh, but it's been out there. Michigan State was doing a lot of research on it, and a couple of years ago I'd heard of this. My nutritionist actually brought it up in conversation, and he doesn't bring up wild ideas normally unless it's something that, hey, there could be some merit there. So we went through the process of tracking down some people that would grow us enough beans to feed for a couple months so we could give this thing a shot and see if it would work. Because this whole thing started when soybean meal started creeping up towards $500, and I can't drive to the grocery store without passing 2,000 acres of soybeans. So I was starting to wonder, like, why am I always at the mercy of the world market here? I understand supply and demand and why those prices happen, but if I could find a way to buy those beans before they make it to the processor, I can probably save some money. So that's where this kind of started. It was like, how do I make it so I can feed those beans? Well, you can't feed them the regular beans, but we can feed them these high oleic soybeans with basically minimal processing. You still have to roast them, but and grind them. But we went that way. We tried it and it was successful. We saw a lot of energy corrected milk increase right away. And at that point, I decided, okay, this is going to be an ingredient that we need to figure out how to make the economics of this make sense so we can make it work. At first, there's premiums on these beans. There's roasting on these beans. We don't have storage. There's a lot of things that you have to figure out that it's going to take us a little bit of time before we make it streamlined and make it as cheap as all of the other feed ingredients. But I'm confident there's going to be enough support and enough guys, enough big operators messing around with this stuff that we'll be able to make it, a regular staple in most people's diets if it works. So yeah, buying the beans from my neighbors, being able to contract the beans has already made it so we can reduce our cost on feed. Yes, compared to traditional soybean meal, it still costs more, but I'm not getting the same things from this that I'm getting from traditional soybean meal. It's not just a protein source. I'm getting energy here, and I'm not feeding any fat. So, and that's kind of another part of the idea. I can buy soybeans from the guy across the road. I have to buy palm fat from Malaysia. So just looking at in terms of sustainability and long-term feed security, I think this was the way to go. And we just, we're kind of in the forefront of it, but it is effective. So we got past that part. Somebody had to step in and say, hey, let's see if this actually works. Well, it does. So now let's see if we can make it economically viable for all of us to use it, right?
And Claire, I think you said you see maybe the model for this kind of like the corn silage model where you're going to contract, you're going to go direct to somebody who's going to grow these for you.
Correct. Yes. So we buy corn silage standing in the field from the neighbors, and we get some benefit on pricing from that. And it's good for them too, because they don't have to harvest it and all these different things. If we can get it to that point where I'm not sure if we're harvesting them, but still by taking out the elevator, we're making it so there's some room in there where because they have to make money too. The elevator obviously does. And this isn't against the elevators. This is just trying to look for any ways to make our largest expense, our feed, less. That's the biggest thing. We spend the most amount of money on. So it's always the thing we're going to be looking to save any amount of money on that we can. So this will make it, yes. For me so far, it's been good to get contracts. My neighbors are interested. We've had good buy-in around here. So I've been able to find enough beans and contract these beans to feed the cows here. So I think people will find when you get out there and you start looking at this, that it's not as crazy and scary hard as it looks to get this done.
That's good.
Okay. AI camera technology is another thing that we've been doing here for a few years. We have AI that does cow and human interaction. So I get a cue every day. I go through and look at incidents where guys put their hand on a cow or whatever, all sorts of different things. Anytime we pick up a down cow, I see those events. Anytime they're in a pen with equipment, anytime somebody has an object in their hand, all sorts of different things. But I use these videos as training tools. We also use them, we have the cameras, we've had them for a long time, but it's somewhat of a policing tool, if you will. But luckily, through training and by having this stuff and talking about it with my team, we haven't had any major incidents. But this allows us to make sure we're tracking all the human and cow interactions and all the sensitive areas in the calf deliveries and things like that. We have tried other AI technology. We had the feed bunk monitoring system that would give us low feed alerts. I don't even know if that exists anymore. And we've tried the one that you do the routine in the parlor. But what happened there was I really just got to where I had too many things going on all at once. And I focused down and whittled it back down to I need this cow human interaction thing. I can see a benefit from having that right now as a training tool. And the other things are very interesting, and I'm quick to try new stuff, but I don't want to try too many things at once and not be able to see any of the benefit from it because I'm distracted with something else. So this is something that's coming along a lot. The only thing I haven't tried so far is the body condition scoring cameras, but I think there's a lot of merit to that. So this is the cameras can make it easier to manage your dairy. They can make it, they see everything. So they see things you don't see, and you might perceive things to be a certain way and find out, when I say improve, potential bottlenecks, if we're getting a million videos of the guys trying to get the cows in the holding, in the front of the holding pen in the back of the parlor, then maybe there's something wrong with that area that I can improve. So the cows want to flow in the parlor better. If they're, that's the sort of things that I find. Okay, well, if we're continually putting people in situations where something negative can happen and you can be frustrated, then it's hard to be surprised to when that happens. So we can always look at things. And even though the parlor has been a certain way for 25 years, doesn't mean it's been the right way. So we've done some minor adjustments and improvements, but that's what I like to use the tool for as well. Is if I start seeing something in a certain area, maybe it's not the people and the cows, maybe it's the spot. So I think this is something that will be with and be developing much, much more going into the future, AI camera technology. Any questions on that?
Yeah. Talk about, do you have anything that's kind of a zero tolerance? If you catch it on a camera, it's just, there's no questions, the guy's gone. Or, kind of talk about your employee follow-up. If a camera catches something, what do you do for retraining or talking to the employee, mentoring, that kind of thing?
Yeah. Any sort of blatant abuse is immediate termination. If somebody's punching or kicking, or like if I were to ever observe someone breaking a tail on the camera, those things are not acceptable. But most of the things I see are just bad habits that lead to stuff like that. Like, put your hand on the tail. Well, I didn't see the tail broke, but if we're touching tails, then that's where that comes from. So we have to stop doing that. Or just all sorts of different things. Like if a guy's getting a little, rough with the cows, or moving too fast and scaring cows so they slip and they fall, things like that. You can retrain on those sort of scenarios. But yeah, this tool exists, so if those things happen, we can immediately respond and terminate the person. And but we try as hard as we can through training and different things to avoid that. But you're never going to avoid all of it, because it's people and it's cows and it's constant. And it's sometimes people make poor decisions. Sometimes cows do too, actually. But they don't deserve to be ever hit. That's not what I'm saying. But like, you do this enough, you can see situations where like, oh, this is just a bad overall deal for everyone involved. But specific to just going out and hitting cows and trying to abuse cows or dragging calves or doing anything like that, none of that stuff is allowed. So if I have that, then that would lead to termination.
I like what you said about how you kind of stack all the videos together. And if you're seeing a pattern, or you're seeing a cluster of videos, maybe in a specific area, it's something to look at. Like, what can we do to improve that area?
I think that's important, because we set it and forget it, and it's been working, or at least we think it has. It's been working good enough. And sometimes there's more opportunity, and you can make it easier. And there's reasons cows flow into parlors, and there's reasons they don't. And sometimes you got to sit back and you got to look at yours and figure out, okay, if I could get them in there and they wanted to go in there, maybe I wouldn't have a person in the holding pen so often. But it's not always that way. But I think you got to sit back and look at that kind of stuff. I'm always trying to look and identify weaknesses and things that maybe we have overlooked.
Well, Claire, talk about some of the things that ideas, we talked about the new things. Now talk about some of those ideas that maybe haven't panned out like you thought they would.
Well, here's one big one. We installed a solar array now a year and a half ago, and it was too large for the utility to take power back. And we didn't know this. So when this thing came along, we had some developers come sell this to us, and we were going to make 50 or 100% of our energy 50% of the time, right? And they did all the calculations, and we needed a megawatt of power to do this. Well, nobody checked to see if that was even acceptable, and it turns out that it wasn't. So then we had to install a relay that made it so we couldn't put power back on the grid, and that was going to make this thing never pay for itself. So what we ended up having to do was disconnect 20% of the solar array. It doesn't do anything now, so we could get under the size limit to where we could feed power back to the utility. So it's just been a very complicated thing. And, they came to us and we're like, hey, we can make our power with the sun. That sounds great. Let's do that, right? We were looking to make an investment in something, and we think, the electricity bill over time adds up to a lot of money. So if we could reduce that here on the dairy, and we can, we had a small little section you can see in the picture just on the corner of the dairy. It wasn't super highly productive farmland anyways. And we just have enough panels to make power for ourselves. And we're not trying to create a solar farm or anything like that, but it's just been a lot more difficult than it seems like it needs to be. And part of that's utility. Part of it's we didn't do our research. Part of it's some of the developer, but these things always sound a whole lot better than they are. And I do not want to make it sound like I'm anti solar power. I think it's cool when they're working, and when we're making power and we're not using anything from the grid, that's great. But it's taken us a lot of headaches to get to this point, and we've learned the hard way through investing money in equipment that doesn't do anything, that you really want to make sure you do your research on all this stuff, and you want to talk to whoever's actually going to take the power and make sure that they're okay with how much you're going to make and how you're going to do it.
Did you make as much power as they claimed you would make?
It can, but it can't be hooked. It can't all be hooked up. So we basically have 550 kWs. That's the limit. So that's what we have plugged in. And in the summer, like this time of the year right now, in the middle of the day, we'll be making with the panels nearly double what we're consuming. So we'll be putting that much back on at that time. But we haven't really seen that in the electrical bills yet. But it wasn't a great winter for sunshine. The last couple months have been much better, and we are starting to see it. But it's been such a long, slow process, and it's been almost 2 years, and we still haven't seen an electric bill where it's like, oh, there we go, we paid half this month than we paid before. So we're still working on that, but there's nothing we can do. They're there. We got to make them work. The plan is to take the part of the array that's not working and connect it to a different service that we have that's on a different part of the dairy, but we're working through that right now. There's a lot of paperwork and different things we have to do with the utility. So it's been frustrating. Another area where I think I took things too far was I fully automated the crowd gate. I didn't like the air-powered crowd gate. It was running cows over, and our holding pen is long. The guys can't see it from where they're driving it. So we put a camera on it, which was nice. Now they can see it. There's a monitor in the parlor. They can see that. That's a great benefit. But I did my research. I looked at these electric gates. I thought this would be a better deal. Electric, you can sense the amp draw, so you can tell how hard you're pushing on your cows. This all sounds good. Yes, let's do this. Well, I just put a whole bunch of electronics in my holding pen where you can see all the fans and all the sprinklers, and we try to simulate a hurricane in there in the summertime to cool the cows down. And none of that electrical equipment is set up to live in that environment very well. And we learned things like the first time it ever snowed on the crowd gate, the encoder quit working, so it didn't know where it was, and just lots of things, new problems that I never had in the past. It has nothing to do with whoever put the technology in. I asked for it, but I just learned, okay, you can take things too far, and this is one of those incidents. And there's an example, a couple of pictures there of the crowd gate. So.
One of the, Claire, go back to that one. I think in our conversations, you said something that was interesting. You said that be careful when you're doing technology to be aware that sometimes the technology companies don't work the same hours that dairy farmers work.
Absolutely true. And sometimes a lot of new technology is not proven on dairies anywhere. So not all of them. I mean, we have a great tech company, but some of them don't have a whole lot of experience with what can happen. And we put things in all sorts of different environments and test them. And it's very, very harsh and hard for things to operate sometimes on these dairies. And you just got to be ready to fix everything yourself. And when you start making things as complicated as the inside of that box right there, you start getting outside of my realm of what I can figure out on a Sunday at 2 a.m. So it's really important to know what kind of support you're going to have. And we do have great support, but it still can slow us down and cause issues. And it's nice to try to keep things as simple as you can for those purposes, because we have to run all the time. We have no choice. We can't stop. So we got to make sure we have things that are super reliable in areas where it almost looks like we're trying not to make them work, which sometimes it seems that way with the way we spray water and everything else. So yeah, you really want to be aware of that. How much are you going to rely on it? How important is it to keep the function of the dairy going? I don't like very many things working that could stop me from milking cows. Like, I don't like to have a whole lot of extra things that, like, okay, well, if now the ID system doesn't work, you can't milk cows. I don't think that's acceptable. I want to identify all the cows, but I want to milk the cows more than anything. So if I don't know how much they made 1 or 2 milkings, that to me is okay compared to a cow standing waiting for 2 or 3 hours for somebody to update software.
Mhm.
Heifer inventory. I've just had a hard time getting my heifer inventory down. We were crossbreds before I was here, and then so the repro was outstanding. It still is, but you make a lot of extra replacements. And I made the transition to sex semen and beef, but you still go through periods of the year when repro is real good and you end up with too many, and then they end up back here at the dairy, and it puts pressure on my fresh pen and my close-ups, and it has been historically hard for me to determine which ones, okay, I know I have some extras. The ultimate solutions don't make them, but it's nice to have some extra animals around too right now. So I've just been working through this. We're getting there. We're getting our cost of heifer raising down finally, but I thought it was something that's going to happen in 1 or 2 years, and it's taken me 4 or 5 years to actually see that show up on the financials. So, yeah, one thing we're doing, we're constantly looking at this, and with the price of a beef calf right now, everything is pretty crazy and pretty tight, which makes the heifer inventory tight, which makes heifers more valuable. But we're using weight data, weighing the calves, weighing the heifers at weaning, weighing them pre-breeding. And I've been doing that for about 6 years. And I have milk production data now to tie to all that, because many of these animals have completed lactations here. So I can look back now and say, okay, if they're not hitting these growth rates, they're going to be in my bottom 5 to 10%. And now I can make a decision on those heifers before they ever come back to our dairy, so that I can solve the problem of the pressure on my close-up and my fresh pen, and still give, they're still good, healthy animals, but I just have, with the data that I have, and I can look at them. When I go sort, I don't sort out an animal because of their average daily gain. I will sort out an animal if it looks like there's something visibly wrong with her, if she looks unhealthy. Well, not very many animals end up looking unhealthy if your heifer program is right. So you've got to drill down further and find some things that you can't just see by looking at them. And we have found weighing them to be, the information that I'm getting back is pretty compelling. So I think I'm finding that solution, and I'll be able to determine which replacements I don't need. More things that didn't work. I put in a pulsation monitoring system underneath the curb. It was too wet down there. It never really worked long enough for us to ever utilize it. So I look at that as kind of like, that was a wasted investment. I've looked at other herd management software. I have my gripes with the software that I use, but I found quickly that I don't want to relearn how to do everything that we know how to do here a different way. And some software can probably do things better or different, but I guess I didn't realize how much, the systems and the things that we do every day are based off Dairy Comp 305. So sorry for the free shout out. No free shout outs. I would have changed my whole system, and then it's going to make all sorts of implementing. And now we got these new tablets and scanners and different things. And I tried it, and I was like, well, this isn't something I realized that this isn't even really a problem. My little things that I don't like about the program are just things that I'm going to have to learn to live with and deal with, because sometimes the devil is better than the one you don't know. And I find that in the software department, both in my herd management software and my feed management software, that none of them are perfect. But find one that you like and that you can work with, or you like the support, and go with it, and just, we want to, track as much data as we can. But again, with me and Dairy Comp, it's kind of like it's like knowing a language. It's like a foreign language. And once you know it, it's easier to work with. But then you put me in front of a different, it's like, well, how do I tell it commands? Well, this one doesn't do commands. Well, I don't know how to do that then. And maybe I'm just not willing to learn. Maybe I'm timing out. But yeah, we tried feed software, but we couldn't wash the tractor, and that doesn't work for us. So we had to go back to, well, we went to where we are now. But again, that's some of those things that you just want to feed cows. Well, the internet's not working today, so you can't open your tablets and you can't do anything. And then, these are problems that never occur in the middle of the week when somebody's readily available to work on it. So you just got to know what you're getting yourself into when you have all these things, and try to have a plan to do it without it in case you can't. I don't like a tablet being a reason we can't feed cows. So, yeah, here's my summary. Made a lot of progress, overall production. When I say I failed individual cows, I've got a lot of cows around here that I really appreciate. And yeah, sometimes I don't do a good enough job, and I've had cows that were really, really great cows go down, get sick, do different things for different reasons. I've lost cows that I haven't had all the answers for. So that tells me that I don't have all the answers yet, and I need to do better. And I hate to lose cows like that, but if you're going to have cows, you're going to lose cows. And some of these cows are the show cows, my kids' cows, things like that, or just good Holsteins that we bought, just lots of different reasons. I know lots of the cows for different reasons, but it's hard but it's good. It's a good illustration to know, like, hey, you're not doing this as good as you think you're doing it, because you've got, all these good cows, and, some of them you still have issues, and you can't prevent everything, but there's certainly things you can do better. And that's what motivates me, is just try to do better for, we've got all this technology, we've got all the monitoring, we got to do better for the cow. But you do better for the individual cow by doing something better for all of the cows, right? And, we can't get too caught up trying to sit here and run through all of our technology and all of our reports and spend 4 hours a day at our computer and say, okay, we've got all this data and we know everything about the cows. The most important thing you can do is go look at your cows and spend time with your cows, or have somebody that does it for you. That's fine. But there needs to be somebody. My 3 guys, Julio, Arturo, and Nicasio, know these cows. They know who they are. They know if we run health reports, they can tell me who's on the health report before I print the health report. That is what makes all of this thing work around here, is we have people in contact with the cows, great people, and we give them a lot of tools, but we don't always have to use them. It's not the tools. It starts with the people. So
thanks, Claire. We're going to go into the Q&A next. Scott, tell us about how this will work.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Also want to thank today's sponsor, Affamilk USA, automating dairy farms. We now like to open it up to our audience for questions. So simply type your questions into the Q&A tab, and they'll be right back to answer those questions right after this brief video.
The guesswork stops. They're actually able to identify the individual cow's balance sheet, understand which cow is more profitable than the other, and this is something that was never done before.
The ability to know the income or feed costs on an individual cow level and make that decision for her.
They could be making the same amount of milk with 10% less feed.
What is possible? 10%? 20%? Feed is what, 75% the cost of the farm? 70%? That's a huge cost reduction.
So to me, it's a game changer, absolute game changer.
We actually see that the 65-pound cow is only eating 40 pounds of dry matter as compared to the 75-pound cow is eating the 65 pounds of dry matter. The lower producing cow is actually making us more money on a daily basis.
Today, we are taking that commitment to the next level with a solution that focuses on feed efficiency, because we understand that improving feed conversion isn't just about better herd performance, it's about better business.
You can measure, you can manage, and you can improve, doing good for the farmers, doing good for the animals, and doing good for the planet.
right, Walt, as a reminder to the audience, you guys can still submit questions to the Q&A tab at the top of your screen. Walt, it's now yours.
Thank you. We did have a question, came in pretty early in the webinar here. Claire, are you using feed efficiency? Let me back up here. There it is. Do you see any correlation between the feed efficiency numbers and any particular genetic feed efficiency index?
No, I haven't looked into that yet. I don't look at feed efficiency index on bulls right now, so I haven't gone that route, I guess. But I'm sure you could, and possibly I should, but I have not yet. No.
Okay. Another question here. One of the sustainability questions is always about trapping your gas digester, turning it into electricity. Have you considered that for your farm?
Yeah, we're signed with a developer. We've been working on that for quite a few years now. That's another one of those things. It's like solar panels, where it takes a lot of money to do it, and they're not always sure where that's going to come from because the market's constantly changing. And we actually went through the process. We installed all the sand separation because I didn't want to go to manure solid bedding when this becomes a thing. So on our own dime, we paid for all the sand separation, but the digester has yet to be constructed. There's been a little bit of dirt work and things like that, but it's taken a long time.
Talk a little bit more about the feed conversions you're seeing. Maybe explain the numbers, like how it with the actual number you're seeing, and what's a good number, what's maybe you're like, oh, that's not a good number, and explain that process.
1.5 is kind of anything under that is pretty low. It depends on, you look at all the other things for the cow and her stage in lactation, and is she pregnant? And, it's just not a hard cutoff, but those are the ones I'm looking at. 1.5 is kind of the number that I start with, 1.5 and below. The herd overall, we track that like on a monthly basis with, I have a guy that looks at all my stuff and my feed intakes and everything like that, and we have a overall herd number, right? 1.65 or 1.7 or whatever. I don't know what it is right today. I could look it up, I guess, if I looked at my email. But yeah, the cows that are below 1.5, those are the cows that we start looking at.
Have you had it long enough to see any interesting observations about feed changes or things that you go from one silage pile to another? Have you had the chance to see that in the data?
Not really yet. I haven't seen. We're getting ready to start our 2024 corn silage soon, so perhaps I'll see that here in the next month or so.
This is another question I think probably could be asked of a lot of dairies, but for your dairy specifically, it sounds like you have a lot of data that would benefit from like a formal statistical analysis to determine if there's any significant correlations or differences. Do you have anyone that consults with you to help with that, or are you trying to keep it simple and just kind of go with what data you can use on a day-to-day basis?
I have a couple people that I work with that do some consulting and looking at our records for us, and basically like heifer repro performance and things like that, basic stuff. Probably the same stuff, or your days open, your days in milk, the stuff you can really get from the monitor in dairy comp, if you will, or any normal things. But whenever I have the opportunity, when the university wants to try something on fresh cows or whatever, we've done a few studies and different stuff like that, try different treatments, and try to do, I try to keep our data really clean, and I try not to change things on purpose. So like when we try to do this pill or that whatever treatment, we can actually see if we're measuring the results of that or if we're measuring something else, because you're not always measuring what you think you're measuring when you're doing trials on dairies, because so many things are interconnected to each other. And I try to be careful of that, because, I change things in June or July and we see milk increase. Well, now that that's happened 4 or 5 years in a row, I wonder, is it something we're doing, or do the cows just make more milk in June and July around here? It's probably that. It's not the feed mixer. It's not the automatic feed pushers. It's not, those things maybe helped us at that time, but when the cows keep doing it year after year, maybe that's just where we are. But, you know, the group of cows that are peaking at that time, I've got some theories on that, but, you know, you got to be careful to, you know, make sure when, you know, and whenever we try these things, what are we measuring specifically and what do we want to see as a result? Because if we can't measure it, we can't manage it. That's what they say. So, yeah, just make sure that, you know, like, you're confident. Okay, this is the problem I'm trying to solve. This is what I did to do it. Did it solve this problem? But what else did it affect? Because maybe you have some unintended benefit or negative effects that you don't always know until you try things, right?
Mm-hmm. One of the questions I always like to ask, Claire, is what's a number that maybe you or other dairy producers pay attention to, or you at one point in time, or other producers still pay attention to that number, but you've kind of moved on and like, that's maybe not as important of a number as I thought it was at one point in time?
Oh, I don't know. I think if I say anything, people are going to think, well, why? Wouldn't you look at that?
I think you had mentioned maybe days in milk.
Yeah, I just don't. But if it was a problem, I'm sure I'd be paying attention to it. You know, like one thing, there's different schools of thought on this. Like, I try not to compare ourselves to other dairies too much, benchmarking, because everybody's scenario is a lot different. And the way they account for things a lot of times is different. And it doesn't always mean, it doesn't, just because my labor cost is X and yours is Y, that doesn't tell any of the story. So I think sometimes we get caught up in this benchmarking world where we want to be top 10 percentile of this or that. And if that's not working for you, you don't get any extra money for having the lowest cost of anything if you're not seeing the benefit out of it, if you're not making a profit, right? So I think I have a great network of peers. We share lots of things, lots of information. It's good to know where people are at. That's not what I'm saying. There has to be some guardrails to stay in between, but I don't get caught up on any of that stuff either. Like, if it's different, I like to understand why, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing because we're spending more over here than someone else is, or it just costs us more because of where we're at. You know, different regions, it's harder to get corn and grow corn or whatever, right? You know, it's I guess that would be one thing that I don't spend a whole lot of time looking at benchmarks.
It does seem like the one thing you and your dairy are competitive on is somatic cell count and milk quality. Maybe that's because it's a little bit easier for every dairy to measure in the same way, right? You want to chase that number.
Yep. Somatic cell, we do pretty good. Standard plate count, raw bacteria count, we do very, very well. And yeah, we like milk quality. That was Brian started that. This dairy had high quality milk before I arrived, but we got here and I've been taught by some really good milk quality gurus, Roger Thompson. There's a lot to the milking event that happens in there, and that's where all the magic happens, and that's where most of the mastitis comes from, your milking parlor. If you're not doing something right, that's when the teat canal's open. That's when she's exposed to the bacteria. That's where it's all got to go down. So we talk about that a lot. I have a guy, Flavio, comes in and trains my milkers. And we basically go over a lot of the same stuff over and over, but that's what it is. It's just getting them to continue to repeat the process. Once you have the right process, getting guys to repeat it and do it over and over takes lots of management. Actually, you just got to, you know, the tendency of human nature is to drift from whatever to try to find a shortcut or a different way. So you just got to keep moving them back to center. And yeah, we do try to make the highest quality milk we can. And back to mistakes. So we chased an LPC problem 4 or 5 years ago. And I mean, I changed my plate cooler. That was not the problem. It was hot water. We bought the super intelligent boiler that was going to make all the water we needed on demand, but it couldn't keep up. And we went, round and round with it. This is the best boiler you can buy. Well, we just wanted the old fashioned one that you can set at 200 degrees and let it run all day. And maybe that's not the most efficient, but we can't be efficient in every area. We need to get the water hot. We're trying to sanitize these lines here, right? So, that's something I learned, and that was a mistake, and that cost us that year. We didn't have anything in terms of awards for milk quality because my lab pasteurized count was way too high. And I did the wrong things to change it at first, but we eventually got there, and we got a little bit bigger plate cooler out of the situation, but that wasn't the issue. But I guess that shows that we're going to go whatever we can to try to prove what the problem is and not stop until we get it fixed. But yeah.
One of the things that came out in our conversations, Claire, that I wanted to make sure is mentioned here is spend time with your cows and your employees, and talk a little about you do meet with milkers, meet with staff every other week. Like, how important is that for not only your culture, but for your operation to have that touch point with your employees?
I think it's incredibly important. We talk about a lot of the same stuff. We go over schedules, we go over milk quality, we go over AI videos, but it just gives us all a touch point, and I see everybody. And I don't see the night guys. I'm not here at night very often, not on purpose. So yeah, I see them. I catch them at the end of their shift in the morning, and then we just go over the day-to-day stuff, and they see what we're paying attention to, and I try to coach them along and give them just a few tidbits of information. I see my herd management team, my breeders, and my fresh cow guys, and all that stuff every day. Different days we're doing different things. If they're busy and they're right out of the office first thing on, Tuesday's off sync day, so they're out, but Wednesday we do vet check, and I do the vet check with them. We're all together, right? So we're talking about all the things we're doing, how, what's going on. Is there anything new? It's usually not very exciting conversation, and that's kind of what we're going for. So, yeah, I think interacting or having someone on your team that does that and showing like, look, I dread these meetings sometimes. I don't want to do them, but I always feel better after I leave. I always feel like glad I did that. I can think of a million excuses, and I can try to find something else to do at that time, but it's good for me too. It's a discipline exercise that makes me do that, and they know it's coming every 2 weeks. And yeah, I've found it to be very, very good in terms of taking care of the little things before they become big things.
Well, Claire, we're at the top of the hour, and
I'm good.
Good questions. We can keep going here, but Scott, let's make sure everybody knows about the next one of these sessions and when they can mark their calendars to come back for another real producer exchange.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Walt. Thank you, Claire. And thank you, everyone, for attending today's webinar. A recording of today's webinar will be available at balchem.com/real science if you'd like to share it with others on your team. Our next Real Producer Exchange will take place on August 19th. You can register for that session at balchem.com/real science or by scanning the QR code on your screen. Be sure to check back as we add more details about the featured operation. On behalf of Claire, Walt, and the teams from Balchem, Progressive Dairy, and Affimilk, thank you for joining us today.